This is the Skin Science Podcast. I'm Dr. Thomas Hitchcock, and here we'll investigate everything skin science and dissect it from a scientific perspective, analyze it from a medical perspective, critique it from a consumer perspective, and give insight from an industry perspective. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Dr. Thomas Hitchcock, and with me in the studio is Angela Wilson McDonald. How you doing, Angela?
I'm great. How are you, Thomas?
Good. It's getting cooler out.
It is. It feels amazing.
It does.
Got my sweater on today.
Me too. We have a special guest in the studio as well. We have Dr. Elizabeth Houshmand. Hello, Elizabeth.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Let me read a little bit about Dr. Elizabeth Houshmand. She is a double board certified dermatologist, also certified or board certified in internal medicine. She she was selected as one of 3 dermatology residents by the AAD, the American Academy of Dermatology, to receive a prestigious AAD international grant. And she has lectured in over 60 countries. How many languages do you speak?
3.
Oh my goodness. I barely speak one.
We've been meaning to talk to you about that, Thomas.
So welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for our discussions today.
Yes, and so Elizabeth is actually on our advisory board for some of the research and products that we're producing in the biome care field. And so today's podcast, we're talking about biome care, the microbiome of the skin. And we thought, who better to have than Dr. Houshmand, and she's actually a Dallas local. Yes. So we're like, why haven't we had her on the podcast?
Well, time is
Thank
now.
you. I'm really excited to talk about all of this. I think this is a new frontier in medicine and overall wellness.
I agree, and it's one of my passions. Everybody knows it's a joke that I always bring everything back to the skin microbiome. It doesn't matter if we're talking about anything. It always comes back to it, and frankly, because it really has. It's related to everything in some sense. But really quickly, I wanted to show you guys, I brought a few puzzles for today to show you. This one is from Ukraine. It's actually made by a guy that goes by the name of Bruns, B-R-U-N-S. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but I've never met him. These are great puzzles. They're all machined out of aluminum. Pretty cheap. From Ukraine, though, take a long time to get to you. It took me about 3 months to get some of these puzzles. But I definitely recommend these. These are ones that are not too difficult. So anyways, this is one is called the Barrel something or other, Barrel Cooper or something. Can't remember, but this one, and then I have a couple others for the next podcast that we'll show. So let's get into the topic for today. So Angela, we kind of talked about what we should discuss, and we really said if we're going to have somebody like Dr. Houshmand, we should really kind of get a clinical perspective, kind of what is happening in dermatology today when it comes to the skin biome, because frankly, a lot of what we've discussed, a lot of my research is somewhat antithetical to kind of, what would you call it, dogma or the current paradigm when it comes to bacteria on the skin or microbes in general on the skin. We know that in research, in the literature of the science and clinical research, there's a lot of publications that basically study, they call it one species of a bacteria or a fungus or something, and then they make a huge conclusion based on that. And we now know, because of all the metagenomic advances in science and technology, that it's the strain, which is very different than a whole species. It's like blaming the human race for, what Jeffrey Dahmer did, right? It's very different to say a species versus a subspecies or even a strain. So I kind of want to get to, from a broad sense. In the pandemic, we kind of got to this place where we were over-sanitizing. And not really in just the pandemic. Like even in the 19th century, point blank, zestfully clean and, squeaky clean and all these kind of soap manufacturers got us to the place where everybody was using huge amounts of detergents and soaps for everything. And then in the pandemic, it just went a little step further because now it was about not just being clean, but staying alive. And so we took extra measures, and there's a lot of abuse of things like hand sanitizers and such. And so from a medical perspective of what you see on a day-to-day basis, how did you kind of navigate, before the pandemic, and then kind of right now in regards to that?
So I think this is an excellent question. Remember, your skin is your largest organ. So it acts, I try to explain always, and I think if you understand that concept, your skin protects you and is your barrier from the outside world. With that being said, when you look at the skin, it's really important to understand that just like in nature, there are a multitude of microorganisms that live on that skin and have their own ecosystem. Understanding that you need a little bit of everything, and it's disease states like rosacea, acne, psoriasis, eczema, or any form of a rashy type issue have to do with a dysbiosis or disproportionate number of that organism. And remember, just like Darwin, survival of the fittest, which of those organisms is going to survive and which are not? The environment that you create on your skin determines that. And so in those disease entities or states, there is an unequal number. Having the correct balance numbers gives you healthy, good skin. So how did I explain that pre-pandemic? I was lucky enough to train at a VA medical center, a children's hospital, and different private clinics. So we saw from infancy to geriatric, and the skin changes over time. And also very interesting, as you mentioned, I lectured to a lot of different countries. The flora in different cultures on the different skins is completely different, both in the GI system and the skin. Why? Our diets are different. We're in a global society, but cultures have their own diets, have their own things that they both consume topically and orally, meaning their food, their diet. So both of these combinations is important. So back to your original question, we would always explain to our young patients with eczema and to their parents that you're not dirty. Having eczema does not mean that you're dirty. It means that we have to take better skin care of your barrier. So no one is dirty unless you're in mud or in construction or something. So we use soap sparingly. I would always explain axilla, private regions, that's what really needs the soap.
Right.
And yes, children can play, they can sweat, they can get dirty, as parents would say. Over cleaning is the other thing, and not exposing them to dirt and hiding them from normal day-to-day interactions, if that makes sense. The other big thing is optimizing that skin barrier, knowing that moisture, hydration is important. And I don't know, have you heard of bleach baths?
Oh, I have, for eczema, right? And they would try to sterilize basically using bleach.
Exactly. So I still today, so you asked me about pre-pandemic, pandemic, and now post. During the pandemic, I was just as guilty. As soon as I would come home from the supermarket, I changed my clothes, I bathed, washed my hair, all of that, because we just didn't know.
There was a lot of panic involved,
There
right?
was panic, including amongst healthcare workers. We just didn't know. So
Better to be safe than sorry mentality.
Exactly. So just we had our KN95 masks, and then we would change our clothes. And I had colleagues that worked in the ER or in ICUs that they didn't stay in their own houses. They stayed in hotels because they were afraid of infecting their family members. So now we're post. I don't know if we're post, but I'll come to this side. I don't know what to call us.
We've learned to live with it, basically.
Correct.
Yeah.
We know that this is a disease entity I feel like we still don't know a lot about, but similar to the flu, it's going to be with us. We have to learn to live.
In some form.
Some way.
Yeah.
So how do I take care of skin now? I still use things like bleach baths. Why? There's been studies to show that by decreasing the areas that have these different unequal growths of the flora on the skin, the normal skin tissues after those bleach baths match. So they have actually shown normal tissue on that individual patient versus the bleach bath area on the eczema-prone skin, and we're able to optimize it and bring back their healthy skin. So to me, this all goes with the concept of understanding and explaining that, hey, you do need some of these quote-unquote bacteria. They're not dirty. They're not disgusting. They're actually helping you, and you need them.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of great points in there. I didn't want to stop you because you're on a good roll, but there's a lot of great points in there. The first is, with the soaps. I'm also, there's another guy that I'm drawing a blank right now. He wrote a book called Clean, and I think he didn't shower for 5 years. He's I think a pretty young guy. I can't remember his name though, but I don't think that's necessarily a good idea. But what I would say is I think he was doing it more for principle than actually because it's logistically a good idea. But I agree with you that when you think about why do you need to use soap, why do you need to shower in the first place, what are the reasons why we as a society have adopted the sanitation habits or the what do you call them, hygiene habits? Because frankly, like think about, well, I exercise, so I need to shower. Well, why? Because I sweated. Oh, well, if you get under a shower, sweat is a lot of it's water soluble, so it'll just wash off and the salts will wash off and such. So what is it that you're trying to use soap all over your body to do? And I think that's very easily explained away. Now it is those apocrine sweat gland areas. Those are oil-based things, so that's why soap might be more appropriate in those areas. But these are all things that most lay people just don't understand. They don't know the difference between apocrine and eccrine sweat glands, and they nor do they have the time or desire to think. All they see is that on the commercial,
Sure.
that guy looks so happy because he just came out of the shower and he smells like a meadow. So that's where it's very difficult to navigate, and I'm sure you see it as well, that there's a lot of things that people see that are gimmicky on TikTok, or I mean even me, I'm looking through Instagram and I'll get caught because they'll have like some topical and they'll claim these things and you'll be like, wow, maybe I should buy. And you're like, no, that's just like,
Yeah.
You look at the ingredients, you're like, there's nothing there.
Right.
But it's very difficult for even us that are in the know to navigate. How does the consumer do that?
So marketing is a big factor. Social media, whether you like it or not, is a very big factor. And I think it depends on the age. Older generations were indoctrinated with this concept of soap is good, soap your whole body. Mm-hmm. The type of soaps that they were using were more detergent based. Mm-hmm. Some of them have beautiful colors. They smell great from scents and dyes. Mm-hmm. And I understand that. It's an experience and it's something they have been told is good for you and healthy. Trying to dial that back is a little bit of a challenge, and taking them to a soap that maybe isn't as cosmetically, with fragrance, dyes. And they said, but doc, I don't feel clean with that type of soap that you're recommending for me, or I don't like the smell. And then also the temperature of the water. People think scalding hot is the way to go. That you're not clean unless you're like
unless
really,
you're red.
Yes. And so I have those discussions. For most people, they will hear me out and I say, you know what, you can have a cheat day. Mm-hmm. You can use your choice of soap, do it once or twice a week. Let's go to medium temperature water. Mm-hmm. I'm not telling you to take a cold. Once in a while, have your hot shower in the middle of winter, but let's try for the most part to adopt this. And when I explain the why, it kind of makes sense to them. The other group is those with a disease entity that think showering is actually bad for their skin and don't want to shower. I have a subgroup that have psoriasis, eczema, and they're scared of water. And I said, no, you do need some hydration. Your skin does need water, and you're okay to shower, to bathe.
Because they're dry.
They're so dry, they're afraid. And then you have the other ones that bathe 2 to 3 times a day, thinking that's helpful. So there are all these different myths. And yes, just even like our scalp, there are people that are not washing their hair. They call it scalp training now. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, look, if you need to wash your scalp, wash your scalp.
Right.
You don't need to do all these trendy things. It's understanding your own skin. My recommendations to my patients depends on multiple factors. How old are you? Do you have any skin issues, or do you have normal skin? Do you have eczema, psoriasis, acne, rosacea? Who are you? Are you a male? Are you a female? As you mentioned, do you exercise? And what's your job? Are you like me that you're indoors all day, or are you outside? Are you doing something? What's your lifestyle like? All of those things are needed for me to be able to give you an optimized, not just a good. I can give you a good, but to optimize it and customize it, I need those factors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Angela, what do you think? I mean, for me, it's about habit breaking, right? Because we're taught to basically, if we have any issue with our body, look for a product to use versus change a habit. Mm-hmm. So, if we are having body acne, rather than think about, well, maybe I should change my gym clothes and wash them more frequently, or, whether I should change my pillowcase more often or something like that, we just go out and we think we can buy some product to fix it, where if we think about how our skin works and why we have the conditions that we do, and that's a lot of the reasons we need our dermatologists, right? Because they understand skin, it's their specialty. Not everybody in the world can intimately understand why skin does what it does. But when you think about skin in general, is that it produces pretty much everything it needs to function properly. It's only when we mess with it that it, now, yes, there are disease states that interfere as well, but majority of people could probably prevent a lot of the issues that they have should they just care for the biome holistically and not just what we see on TV, right? So this types of soaps that, for instance, I was just talking with Seti in our peanut gallery earlier today. Hey guys, by the way, got to say hello to Dr. Maldonado, Seti, and Alan. We're just talking with her because she started using one of the products lines that we just launched, and she's raving about how it cleared her skin and stuff, which is one music to my ears. But, it doesn't surprise me because when you start to treat your skin holistically, thinking through the biome, what's needed for the whole biome to be taken care of, it makes sense that you would see things clear up. However, one of the things that I said to her was, I personally don't use any type of cleanser on my face that foams, because that typically means there's too much surfactant in there. If there's too much surfactant, it's stripping the oils. If it's stripping the oils, that's the food source for the good bacteria. If there's no good bacteria, the bad ones move in. The bad ones move in, then all of a sudden you're screwed at that point. And so it's like a lot of people just don't realize that habits, their hygiene habits could be one of the reasons, overwashing or underwashing or whatever. So what do you think, Angela, before...
What the question I really have is, I think the average consumer is now trained to understand gut health and the use of probiotics or yogurts or things to improve their gut health and the impact that can have on their overall health. Now, as a dermatologist, and we start moving into a discussion about skin health and how the microbiome, just as you said earlier, is a big part of skin health and beauty even. How do you get that? How do you make that paradigm shift? Dr. Houshmand, how do you communicate that to patients so they understand and can relate just as they do with gut health to skin health?
I'm smiling because there's two things that come up for me pretty much on a daily basis. In the society that we're in, I think Thomas raised a wonderful point where people want a product. They want a quick fix. It's a behavior that maybe need, and less is more. I ask, so just so you know, when I have patients come in for any sort of skin evaluation, I say, bring all your products with you or take pictures so I can see what you're actually using. I have been in practice now for a little bit. When I first came out, I was always surprised. A giant bag would come out with, I can't even tell you how many products, from Sephora, from Ulta, from online, from over the counter, some prescription. And I was like, well, what's the goal of all this? What do you try? Because I do need to know what your goal is. And honestly, half of the stuff, more than half, is not necessary. Less is more. And understanding that your skin, as you beautifully stated, really has a lot of its own essential functions. We can tweak a little bit. You don't need a 7 to 11 step skincare plan, which is all over social media. I myself don't use that. I basically have 1 to 3 things max, and one of them is always sunscreen, obviously. So when I say that, their eyes sort of open and they kind of listen to me. And we have a discussion about habits, about sleep, about what they're, not just your daily stress. Stress is a huge component of this, both on the skin, on beauty, on your GI system, on all your organ systems. So stress, I would say, is actually the number one issue that I see. And remember, I do treat a lot of hair loss as well, and skin conditions and acne, and all these things get worse with stress. And we've had an awful time, 2 years of not knowing economy, different pressures, different things. And so I think letting people know it's okay to have stress, but let's find ways for you to manage that. And I go over little things. Take a 10-minute walk. Make a phone call to somebody, whatever,
Breathe.
5 minutes. Breathe. Exactly. Just breathe. Shut off your phone. Put it on airplane mode.
Yeah, we're constantly stressing ourselves out just by,
Very
I do it
much
to
so.
myself as well.
I'm guilty too.
First thing in the morning, I pick up my phone and I see all these emails of people complaining and stuff. And it's like, why did I do that to myself? I didn't even take 5 minutes to just wake up and pet my dog or something. But let's talk, you raised the point that I think is super critical that most people have no clue, which is the body is super interconnected. The skin, the gut, the brain, all these things are connected. And one of the biggest connectors is the immune system. The skin is the largest immune organ. not because it produces immune cells, but because it houses immune cells. And we won't get into all the nuances of that, but it's the largest immune organ, and it's directly connected to the gut and the brain via that immune system. So when people have skin issues or gut issues or even neurological issues, a lot of it could be connected. Those things can be connected. And there's studies that have shown, connection between gut issues and skin issues and neurological issues, and quality of life in general. And for instance, I just got sick a couple weeks or last week with a virus, and it was just a run-of-the-mill common cold, but I had been traveling 2 weeks straight. I didn't have weekends because I was at either a conference or giving talks. I was stressed out because of certain things that were happening at work. And I knew from experience in my past that's the worst thing you can do for your health, because once your immune system takes a dip, you're fair game. And it's not that the things that you're exposed to are necessarily more dangerous, it's that your body's not ready to meet the demand of fighting those things. Sure. In the world, we're always coming into contact with pathogens. Every second of the day, we're inhaling pathogens, we're touching pathogens, we're ingesting them when we eat, they're hitting our eyeballs. The thing is, our immune systems are meant to allow us to live in a non-sterile world. We cannot sterilize the world. So yeah, if you're in an ER or something, you probably should be using hand sanitizer. But most people don't come into contact with pathogens that our immune systems are not meant to prevent. That being said, the stress and other things like bad diet or not exercising or things of that nature can dampen our immune system, which can contribute to dysbiosis wherever. So I agree with that 100%. And I don't know if, Angela, if you have anything else to say on top of that, but that's one of the things that people just don't think about. They think, I got to go get a cream, versus maybe I should just chill out and stop reading emails all hours of the day, take an hour or two for no screen time. What do you think about that?
Well, and it's something you said earlier, Elizabeth. They buy into not only the marketing, but they buy into the experience. So they're having an experience with these products. So when they bring out this bag of products and you give them this information, how well do you think they receive that and incorporate that into their routine? Is that something where they go back and keep doing what they're doing? Or do they start kind of listening and understanding that, yeah, less is more? Is that something they're ready to receive?
Angela, they really are actually appreciative. Why?
Yeah.
It's a lot of steps. It's a lot.
And money.
Yeah.
And money.
Money.
And I pare it down for them, and I tell them to finish the current product that they have before making any recommendations. Why?
Right.
That bag is a very expensive bag, and if there's some good items in there, as long as there's nothing harmful for their skin type or their condition, I let them use it, but we usually pare down. Again, 2 to 3 things max, including your sunscreen. So we're talking
I love that.
a cleanser or a micellar water. Mm-hmm. If they're dry, if it's winter, fall, maybe some form of moisturization, and your sunscreen. Done. You don't need much more than that. And even the moisturizer, you may not need that. Maybe I'll give you something else.
Right.
Maybe we'll do something specific. Again, if they're trying to treat melasma, if you want to treat
Sure.
redness, if you want to treat whatever X is, then I might give you something for that. Otherwise, you may not even need that.
Right.
Yeah,
And we're such a time-poor
Yeah.
society. That has to be a message, and I think that may be the key is to understand that less is more. And and time is an issue here with us. And again, we are a time-poor society, and I would think they would really welcome that idea from a specialist who knows about these products and knows the care of the skin. That must really resonate with them.
Do you get pushback from less is more?
Sometimes, yes. So in my, what age group? 20 to 30, they really want to use some other things, and they have products they like. I'll tell you exactly. There's a brand from Korea that has snail mucin and some other things, which I've done my due diligence and homework on these things, because I want to know, okay, is there something
Sure.
they love that particular product? So I let them use it. Again, I think it's more the experience. It's a self-care time.
I call a lot of that junk food for skin. Because, it's like cake's okay every now and then, right? But you shouldn't make it part of your routine diet. And the problem with the skincare industry as a whole, we're in it too. Like, we make skincare products, and I'm not trying to throw anybody in particular under the bus, but I think part of my philosophy, which I tend to write about when I write things and lecture and such, I call it the holobiont philosophy, because it's about, there's certain ingredients that, sure, in a petri dish of skin cells, it does wonders, but in the ecosystem, that may be a different story. And really, I think we're on the verge scientifically of starting to suss out how to actually test those things. For instance, one example is bakuchiol. So bakuchiol, I actually was looking at as well because one of my key formulators at Crown came up to me and said, because we were being asked, I don't remember what we were formulating for, but they were basically saying, because I'm not a huge fan of overuse of retinoids.
Sure.
And so I think a lot of people use them because of marketing, not because they need them necessarily. Right. And so they're like, well, this bakuchiol is better on the skin, so it's not as irritating and stuff. So at first I was really kind of caught up in it. There's not a lot of data on bakuchiol. There's one study that's pretty compelling. And then when I started looking, we tested it out in our labs because we have a microbiome lab, and it killed all of the good microbes. And I said, absolutely not. It's like, we're not going to, what is it called? Steal from Mary to pay Paul, whatever the saying is. Yeah. It's like, but I think in skincare, we're guilty of that a lot of times, where we're like, well, I got to get an antioxidant in there, so I'm going to buy this skincare. But then if you look at all the other ingredients, it's not pure ascorbic acid or anything. And so it's the same with all of the formulation's very dependent. It's chemistry. And we have biochemistry. So when you take a chemical and put it on the skin, it may not be exactly how it is in a petri dish because you have other things in the environment on your skin. You have microbes that metabolize ingredients and can spit stuff out that may or may not be good for you. So that's the one part that I think we fail to understand in society right now. And I'd like to hear from a dermatologist perspective how you kind of navigate this, because you can't look at every ingredient list that comes across for every product. So it's impossible for you to vet everything for each of your patients.
I think you raised so many excellent points, and something that I see on a daily basis. It's the hot topic of the hot ingredient right now. And actually, if you look at some of these specialty cosmetic stores, if you go in, they have section by section. Bakuchiol, hyaluronic acid is one of the largest ones that I get asked every day. Do I need an HA? Do I need to put water down? And I say, HA is not bad, but remember, the absorption is not what you think. Right. Do you really even need an HA? What is your goal with this? A humectant, your skin may not require that, but it's such a buzzword right now on social media, on just if you go into a regular store.
Where do you think this comes from, though? Like, who's the one that starts it? Does somebody just get on social media?
No, industry. Think about it.
Right.
Industry. Yeah. Some of the beauty brands that I consult with myself, they have different hot ingredients.
Sure.
And I think in the right population, they can be good, but people that don't need X will start using that because it is, well, I'm missing out. I need to have this. I'm missing out. I should add that.
So where's the responsibility then? Is it on the consumer to do their homework? Is it the dermatologist to? You can't dictate everything.
It's hard. Remember, I'm a consumer too.
Yeah, me
I
too.
am. I go into these stores. I don't say who on earth I am, and I ask questions and I'll tell you honestly. At one of these stores, someone said, "Oh, I had picked up something. I don't even remember. I think beauty sponges or something." And she said, "Oh, do you want to try a cream?" I said, "Sure. What cream would you like me to try?" And it was a hyaluronic acid, actually a really good formulation.
I'm sure it felt great.
I just stood and listened, and she actually gave me a pretty good discussion. And she said when I should use it, morning or night. And I was actually pretty impressed with it. But the fact that the salesperson was speaking to me, came up and did that, I said, wow. So there's something to be said. So imagine the patient, my patient that goes in there. They're going to get hooked on. They're like, okay, I need this.
They speak with authority.
Very much so.
Because they're trained to. They're given a speech and they're given whatever literature they're supposed to look at. And frankly, it's all very compelling because HA is found in the skin by itself. Yeah. And so it's one of those things where I believe there's nothing necessarily nefarious happening. No. It's just that, there is a certain responsibility of the consumer to say, I don't need that. Or I need that. But sometimes I will say that there's a little bit of gray area that as an industry, sometimes you want to make sales. And so you don't necessarily say, you're not going to go around saying don't use this.
Well,
you make it safe for everybody because you want as many people to use it as possible.
Think about the department store. So I was taught this in residency. We give prescriptions. We have over-the-counter things that we carry in the office. I don't like the word medical grade because I don't know what that even means. It's like, don't get me started. That and clean beauty are two different topics for another podcast. But what are we doing, and how do you make recommendations? The marketing side, someone who works at one of these department stores does a beautiful job of their pitch. That is their job.
Right.
My job is a little bit different. Mine is to guide you towards skin health
Right.
and your overall wellness. And hopefully the two align and mesh, and I think we can. I don't think
Not
there
always, but
are
yeah.
some harmful things out there and some non. They're just
You're
not
right.
effective.
You're
They're not
right.
doing anything.
Well, what
You're
about
right.
the salesperson that speaks from a place of passion because a product has worked for them or they did see change in their skin? I think there's a lot of that going on as well. People sharing their personal
Sure.
testimonials. Well, when I started using this, my skin did that. So, what would you say to that for people who are having their personal experience, and maybe it was this particular salesperson at the department store and said, when I started using this product, what would you say to that, Dr. Houshmand, at that time? They're sharing their personal testimonial.
I do think there is some validity to that,
Yeah.
because that's their personal experience. But just like your diet, just like your overall health, it may not work for you. It may be harmful for you, depending on what you have. The three of us are sitting here. I'm sure we don't have the same exact diet, the same health habits, the sleep hygiene, all of those factors that go into a healthy individual. You raised an excellent point earlier about the skin being your largest kind of organ and defense system. Remember, the skin it's a wonderful organ in the sense that it gives me clues as your physician. If you have any gut, liver issues, you may have what's called jaundice, that's yellowing of the skin. If you have some other things, I look at your nails when I examine you. That nail bed tells me a lot about your overall health. I can figure out what's happening in your heart. I can tell if you have any autoimmune or inflammatory diseases. In psoriasis, we see pits in the nails. The body shares with you what's happening internally through the skin. And so when people come in requesting, I want to look glowy and dewy. That's my top two requests.
Oh, okay.
Glowy
Good
and
to know.
dewy is what
Okay.
everyone wants. Whatever age group you are, everyone wants to look glowy and filtered. And that's really the number one request. People don't come in and say, it depends on but they don't come and say, I don't want to be saggy. I don't want to have wrinkles. I don't want, you know what I mean? Those aren't the words. So what are they telling me? I want to look luminous. I want to look even. That's my translation for those two requests that they have. So how do I get you there? You have to be healthy. That's the first words out of my mouth. I said, what's your diet like?
Yeah.
How much, what are you consuming? What do
Can't
you
just
do?
be topical, right?
No.
It's inside out,
Yeah,
outside
it's
in.
not a quick
100%.
fix.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so understanding that the gut microbiome is different than your skin microbiome, putting those two together, sharing that information and knowledge with them, it's very enlightening and empowering, I think, for them, because they're like, oh, okay. Once they get it, they understand why we're taking some things away, and they don't need all of that soap, and they don't need
right.
the 11 skin, but there's some things that you do need, and those will be customized for you and may change over time. My skincare has evolved. My 18-year-old self and myself now use different products. I know what I need now for my skin.
100%, because as we age, we produce different things, and the biome changes based on what we produce. In the future, I think curating the biome will allow us to actually even that out a little better and allow for better epigenetic upkeep of, skin aging and such. Anyway, I think we are out of time. Am I right? Okay. So I thank you very much, Dr.
Thank you.
Houshmand. It was wonderful,
Yeah,
and
that's
hopefully
very
we can get you
interesting.
back here again.
It was awesome. Thank you so
So-
much. I could sit here. I told Angela when she came to visit me in the office, I said, with Thomas, I could just sit and listen all day and hear you speak. I always learned so much, and it's always such a great dialogue and discussion. And I know you've had 8 years of research to bring to fruition what's about to come.
Yeah,
So it's exciting.
it is exciting. I don't think that everybody at Crown would probably agree that they want to sit and listen to me talk, but
Depends on the day.
it depends on the
And
day
the topic.
and my mood. But thank you so much for
Thank you
being
for
here.
having me.
So what's my little blurb here about social media? It's not okay. So if you want to find out more information about this and other topics that we're researching at Crown, take a look at our website at crownlaboratories.com, or you can connect with me on my Instagram at dr.t.hitchcock. And Elizabeth, what's your Instagram if they want to?
Real simple, just like my name, at Houshmand, Houshmand, MD, and that's it.
All right, and Angela, did you want to put yours?
Sure. Instagram at Angela W. McDonald.
Okay.
Awesome.
So thank you for your eyes and your ears. We hope that you gleaned something from this conversation, and we will see you back here on the next episode. Goodbye for now.